So our run of beautiful fall weather finally ended. This weekend was really cold. On Friday, I looked out the door and it was snowing. So I decided it would be a good time to pull down my winter bike and get that tested out. I shouldn't call it my winter bike. It's more of a snow bike. You know, if there's not snow on the ground, I'm just going to ride my gravel bike or even a road bike, whatever I want. But I do have my old mountain bike set up with studded tires, and I just only use it for that purpose now. I've made a bunch of videos about that bike. If you search for Trek 4900 on this channel, you'll find stuff about it. But in essence, it's a 2001 Trek mountain bike, 26-inch wheels. I've put a Surly corner bars on it and a happy stem to bump up the bars and give that feel of drops without investing too much money in it. And the tires are the 45 North Gravdals, which I think are 2.1 or 2.2, whatever, studded tires, and that's the whole point of it. There wasn't enough snow on the ground that I really needed to ride it on Friday, but I had a photo shoot like 2 miles down the road, so I figured that'd be a good time to test it out, pump up the tires, see how it was shifting and all the stuff. I put it away clean last winter and lubed it all up, but I just haven't ridden it since. You want to make sure your tires are holding air and all that, and I want to make sure of all those things on a short, easy ride before I'm out at night in the snow on a really cold night and having to fix a flat or whatever it may be, or some problem where the gears aren't working. So I rode it. It was actually fine. Photo shoot down at Asterix, my buddy's coffee shop and cocktail bar. So everything was fine with the bike except the brakes. The front brake was almost non-existent. It's just, I don't know, the cables need to be, I need to pull some cable or barrel adjust or whatever. It also looked like the pads weren't even super lined up, so I don't know if I just rode it hard all winter and then by the end never did any adjustments to it. I mean, that must be what I did. Anyways, I forgot, it is slow going, like riding on those studded tires, because I usually only ride it when the conditions are sloppy and I'm kind of focused on remaining upright or riding through the snow where there's just no, speed's not an issue or anything. But yeah, riding it across the pavement, even just a few miles, I realized like, oh yeah, winter bikes, snow bikes, it's a different game. But glad that everything in general is fine. I'll tune up the brakes and get those going. So that was I only got like 4 miles in on Friday doing that. But then on Saturday was a ride called Yeti's on the Loose. So every Sunday, my local bike shop, Dirty River Bicycle Works, has a Yeti squad ride. And it's like usually kind of like trying to explore new places, but a shorter ride, weight up ride, no drop, like really chill. Kind of started as a fat bike thing, and some days most people are still on fat bikes. I only make it out a few times a year when they're doing something special. Like last week they did a different version, which was a longer, more gnarly, more exploration, industrial gravel type stuff ride. So I was out, did that one. It was a lot of fun. And so a couple friends who do that started a new version of that, which is once a month on Saturdays. And it's something farther and a little more challenging. And this week it was out in Hartville we met up at Maze Valley, which is a farm, brewery, winery, restaurant, really cool place. And then, so my buddies Scott and Tony had put together a really cool route out there that went through Alliance. Hit a couple bike paths I'd never been on. Kind of really cool little bike paths that were like curvy and through the woods and really pretty country roads, pretty farm country and all that. So I'm glad I made it out to that ride. I think there were 9 of us or 10 of us who started. The temperatures, though, I think it showed like a high hitting like 34. I think between the wind and, a lot of this ride was exposed, I think we probably never had much more than 30 degrees. And I'm sure the feel, or whatever they call that, feels like temperature was much, much lower. Scott was saying he thinks it might be his longest below freezing ride ever. I was trying to think that, and it might be mine as well. I was really happy. I kind of nailed the clothing thing, though. This is the first real cold weather we've had this year, and it always takes a little while to get back into what works for what. But so what I wore was a real thin wool base layer on the top, and then this, which is a Surly kind of jacket wool, thicker wool, my windbreaker, and then a chrome vest over that. And then I wore a cap. That's a wool cap. Below I had thicker wool tights on. And then my jeans, my shoes, I have some winter 510s, and I wore some long wool 45 North socks with some thicker ones over it. By the end of the ride, because we were out for probably 4-ish hours, because it was 38 miles, my feet were getting cold, but that just to me is like always going to happen. But they didn't get to the point of actually hurting or being numb or anything like that. we finished up the ride with a beer at the brewery and food, which is great. The one thing on the ride was there was just in one direction a brutal headwind, like standstill kind of headwind, where you're using the gearing you would use for like an 8-9% incline. So I would love to go back and do this awesome route when like the weather's a little nicer because it crossed over some reservoirs. There were some cool bridges. Just a great ride. So cold weekend, but a good weekend. Got the winter bike tested out. Had a great, social ride on Saturday. Sunday was actually really, really cold. We woke up, it was under 20 degrees, and it wasn't really going to warm up all that much. So me and Ben and Aaron did this thing called hiking. It's kind of like mountain biking, but there's no bikes. So we decided to go for a walk and then go get lunch and do all that instead of try and get all bundled up for the cold weather. I'll end up riding at that temperature this year for sure, but it's still just being late November. None of us were really feeling the under 20 degree ride. Again, the Yeti ride was going on and I looked at the temperature and I did not want to get out of bed and get dressed up for a bike ride like that. But when the snow starts falling, I'll definitely be back out to the Yeti rides. If you're local, you should check it out. Look up Dirty River Bicycle Works. If you're on Facebook, they have a group for the Yeti ride. So they kind of talk about, later in the week, they'll talk about what bike you might need to have with you for the ride that week. When it's snowing, it'll be the obvious. A lot of people ride fat bikes. I'll ride my old Trek with my studded tires. But that's it for this video. I did want to say that me and Aaron finally spent a night getting all the merch I have up on the website. So if you like the Gravel Badass series and the art that Micah Kraus designed for it, we now have shirts and stickers with that, as well as a couple other things up there. We figured out shipping for the US. So everything is US only right now. My goal is this week to getting the Canada stuff up there and then Europe. It's a little convoluted, but it's going to save me a lot of effort in the long run because I've just been doing flat rate and I've been losing a lot of money shipping when someone orders from Europe or Canada or Australia or whatever it may be. So I'm trying to get all that worked out. So sorry if you're from somewhere else, but I've got plenty of stuff. If you want to support the channel, support artists and all that kind of stuff, go for it. I appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one.